Hey everyone, this is Phil from STS Classics. We have here today a 1928 101 Scout that will be up for sale and or auction in the very near future. So I'm putting up this walk around video. It was a bike that was all together. It wasn't just a bunch of parts. None of these are reproduction parts. The tank is an original tank. The engine and transmission were original to the bike with the correct VIN numbers associated with that and appropriate for a 1928. This particular motorcycle had the benefit of a restoration by one of the masters of mechanical work on the 101 Scout, as well as restoration work, and that is Johnny Eagles of Orange County, California. Anybody who is anybody in the Indian world, the vintage Indian world, knows of John Eagles and his capabilities. The noted historian of Indian motorcycles, Harry V. Suker, who I had the pleasure of talking with on many, many occasions through our involvement in the Antique Motorcycle Club of America, the Southern California branch of that organization. When he needed his 101 Scout restored after many years of ownership, he turned to John Eagles to do the whole thing, and that says a lot about people's respect for this master 101 Indian mechanic. John redid the engine and transmission completely, and in fact went through the entire motorcycle completely. The restoration was completed approximately 10 years ago in 2013, and it's a phenomenal machine. Every nut and bolt was attended to. It's simply what we believe to be one of the best examples in the world, and a little different than most in that is not in the classic Indian red, but rather this stunning black and red paint scheme that was done by a master painter, and one of the most noted Southern California pinstripers did all of the pinstriping associated with this machine. So what I'll do, again, you can hear it running on the cold start video that we put up on YouTube, but I'm going to take you around and just look at a few of the details so you can see just how correct and original this motorcycle is. And this motorcycle, amazingly, not only looks perfect, but it runs perfectly in every respect. So without further ado, I will grab the camera here and go around and look at some of the details. Alright, I guess we'll start in the front. Obviously, the suspension on this motorcycle, there's basically three elements of suspension. I'll say the tires, which are Indian branded tires, and they are 418 here. The second element of suspension, of course, is the leaf spring here in the front, and then the third is basically the air in the rear tire, but mainly the springs here on this beautiful Messinger seat that is flawless. But back to the front, the headlamp, everything works. So there's your basic light, off switch, and then the bright, everything is functioning properly there. And the headlamp is in excellent, perfect condition. I will say that all of the wrappings of both wiring with cloth and the wrappings of the metal cables, the throttle cable here that's running through the handlebar, in the proper leather wrapping and going back to the carburetor. Again, just just an elegant, beautiful piece of equipment. The braking system here in the front is, of course, a drum brake. But it's an internally expanding drum brake, as per usual. But if I go to the rear of the bike, this is a compressing brake that essentially squeezes down when the brake pedal is applied, and it levers down onto the drum below rather than expanding outward to the drum surfaced onto the front hub brake. Here are these proper leather wrappings around both the carburetor throttle cable as well as the mag, the cable going to the mag to retard and advance the mag. The mag, it's going to be hard for you to see inside there. I don't know if it's going to pick up on camera, but it is a split Dorf unit. And again, the cable coming down to the advance and retard on this split Dorf S2 model, with the typical wire coming across here to hold the cap on. While I'm down here, might as well talk a little bit about the carburetor, which is a Schaebler DLX51 unit. This thing is a one-kick, as you can see with the cold start. It's a one-kick machine. Literally 19 out of 20 times. And fuel line going down to the bowl. This has all been gone through by Johnny and remains in perfect condition. As you can see on this engine, it's got a wonderful tone to the metal with, I believe, nickel plating. I am not a Indian or 101 expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I am told that this is the correct coloration of the metal. As you can see, there are no broken fins, and all of the head bolts and fasteners are correct. The VIN on the machine, you can see, is DGP1723, and that is a 1928 Indian 101 Scout number. This engine and the cases are just in beautiful condition. I mean, this is 100-year-old metal, and it's been around for a long time, and it's just elegant and beautiful. The shifter here's the top of the shifter connector to the transmission, and my personal preference is to have a left-hand shifter, because I know the Indian purists will poo-poo all of that and think it's not correct, not right, but you can change that over pretty darn quick. So no harm, no foul. Moving more to the rear now, we again have the Messinger seat here in the camera view. And let me go to the tank now. As you can see, the paint on the tank is just beautiful. Again, done by a master mechanic associated with a long-term Antique Motorcycle Club of America member. And the Indian logo, the Scout logo, These are not decals. These were hand laid out with the assistance of stencil, as I recall, and all of the pinstriping is hand done. And that includes on the fenders, front and rear, on the chain guard on the right side, etc. But paint is flawless. Probably a little bit better than came out of the Springfield factory. This tank, in order to ensure no rotting, rusting, corrosion, the tank was lined by GTL in Southern California, and you can see that silver gray lining on the tank, which is used by GTL and to line not only the same process is used in aircraft, gas vessels of various kinds, and it'll last forever. And that was done not only in the oil tank here, but also in the gas tank as well. So there's zero corrosion and zero leaking. This actually is a oil plunger that goes through the tank, and so it passes right through to this valve, which then goes around to the crankcase on the left side. And if you're going uphill and chugging along or putting the bike under a lot of load, you can open that up and pump a few squirts of oil into the crankcase to get a little bit more oil into the system. But frankly, we haven't had to use that because we're not pushing the machine at all, and the bike only has a couple hundred miles on it, break-in, and just for a few Antique Motorcycle Club events. The oil tank line comes down here into the oil pump, and in 1928 until I believe through 1930, it was a one-way oil pump, meaning that it was just feeding into the pump, feeding into the crankcase and bearings and surfaces, and then any of it that passed by, it was basically a no return line system. I think in 1931, if I'm not mistaken, for the half year that they produced 101 Scouts, in that year it had a return back up to the oil tank. So as you can see, the paint quality on this is phenomenal. Some might say almost too nice, but we love it. This frame, when John got the bike, he informed me that he had that it was in really excellent shape. It had no evidence of having been bent or straightened at any time, and that all the tabs and all the frame connections, motor mount areas were all in excellent condition. And this was simply repainted, sanded, repainted. So just a stunning machine. Here's some of the pinstriping on the chain guard that I was referring to earlier. We got Champion spark plugs, the correct kind of clip connectors. intake manifold and the back end of that Schaebler DLX 51 carburetor. Again, the metal on the machine is just has a beautiful color and beautiful finish. Here's the other side of the shifter tower coming out of the transmission, 3-speed transmission, 1 all the way back up towards you, neutral in between, 2nd down, and 3rd all the way down. The exhaust system, you can see the headers are in excellent condition. The header nuts as well, they were torqued after the first several rides and heat cycles. That goes down into the muffler and out the back. This because it's a full loss oil pump setup, as you can see down below here, there's a little drain plug. Let me see if I can get this camera down in. You can see it there. Hopefully you can see it. That little drain plug, if the bike sits for any period of time, you will normally sump oil from the tank down into the case, and if you start it, you'll get some smoke. If you open that plug up and get rid of any extra oil, if you've been sitting for a few weeks, then it won't smoke on startup. This horn is a Klaxon unit, correct for this motorcycle. The generator back here, I go around the other side, is a Splitdorf unit. Here's the Splitdorf name, and it's hard to see it there, but this is it's a DU7. So one feature I would like to point out here is this rear sprocket, which is actually attached, as you can see, to the spokes, and it is there as the drive for the included in the sale Corbin speedometer, which we will get pictures of to you shortly. So in case you were wondering what the heck is this sprocket doing on the other side of the rear, that's the function. The rear light, speaking of lights, here again we have the amp meter and the switch for the lights. Again, here's the front light and the rear light. And this is a original California 1928 motorcycle plate, which is not easy to find. Let me turn that light off. The 1928 again can be identified easily by this system of a levered connector to the gears that open up the exhaust valves. I believe it's the exhaust valves on the front and rear cylinder, and the compression loss causes it to stop running. And then the spring pops it back up, and compression is returned and you're good for your next start. 1929, 30, and 31 models did not have this unit, and a lot of 28 models, they capped that off and just put a little lever arm down here for some of what the later models used to as a turn-off of the engine. Hopefully this video has allowed you to see this beautiful and, we believe, stunning example of an Indian 101 Scout. Hopefully this walk around video has been helpful for you to evaluate this motorcycle for potential purchase, or just to enjoy looking at it, which many people have done over the last 10 years of our ownership. And as they say, you really don't, you may own them in some legal sense, but in essence you're caretakers of these iconic pieces of history that amazingly form part of the pantheon of great motorcycles in the history of motorcycling. And certainly in the Indian motorcycle history, you would count the 101 Scout, certainly the Indian Chief, the four-cylinder motored examples as the three best. But according to Harry V. Suker, when I asked Harry, I said, if you could have one last ride in your life, what would you ride? And Harry didn't hesitate, didn't skip a beat. He immediately said, I would take the Indian 101 Scout because of its combination of power, stability, agility, and beauty. It just looked right from every angle. It was if you were in the canyons, this would beat any of the other bikes, be it a Chief or a four-cylinder, which were better on a straightaway perhaps, or certainly long distance. But these were used by police departments, and as many of you know, they were also used in the Wall of Death features at state fairs and back in the day in the 1930s and 40s. And to this day, the stability and agility and power of these machines are why they're some of the very few examples that were built between 1928 and 31 are now in the hands of those people who are providing thrills for everybody else in the Wall of Death displays. Thank you for your long attention in this video. Hopefully it was useful to you. Until next time, this is Phil from STS Classic Motorcycles.